Welcome to the Numbers Game. It's week 6 in the NFL, and we've got 13 more games to break down based on the key contextual stats driving the whys behind the forecasted scores, player projections, which trends figure to hold, and which are likely to be bucked. We'll also add in some nuggets to know, a list to follow, and other fun things to make watching along with the NFL even more exciting. As always, thank you so much for coming to hang out. Your notes, questions, and feedback to make this better every single episode have been amazing. Keep them coming. It always means a lot to me that you're choosing to spend some of your time and energy with me. My overall week 5 results were 9-14 straight up, 6 wins against the spread, and 6 wins on totals, bringing my season to 64.3 straight up, 48.1 against the spread, and 51.3 on totals. I am always aiming for 10 wins in each category, and I had some great talks with my coaches this week. That is part of what makes my models different. I combine the influence of the actual people responsible for architecting playbooks and calls with the math to hopefully be that contextual link, that analytics toolkit for you. So let's dial in. Nothing goes better with breakfast than football, and we get it again this week from Tottenham Hotspur yet again when the Jacksonville Jaguars take on the Chicago Bears. Week 5 was a good one for each quarterback on downfield passes, so let's look at that real quickly as each team's notes. For the Jags, Trevor Lawrence has taken the 4th most attempts, so 38.5% of attempts have been downfield, and he only completed 40.4 until last week. But last week, he went 6 of 8 for 196 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had a pick. On the Bears side of things, Caleb Williams was sub 45% for 446 yards, 2 touchdowns, and all 4 of his interceptions on any pass where he even held on to the ball for 2.5 seconds or more. But in week 5, he too completed 75% of his downfield passes, and both touchdowns came on them. One was deep and one was intermediate. This is his 2nd week in a row with positive EPA after having the 2nd lowest rate by any quarterback for weeks 1 through 3. Bottom line, the Jags defense has allowed 857 yards after the catch. That is number 1 the most by almost 100 yards. They've also allowed the 3rd highest passer rating, 111.7. The Bears have only allowed 479 yards after the catch, 7th fewest, and the lowest passer rating allowed at 68.2. Chicago gets the win, 24-20, and this ranks 8th of 14 in confidence. In the regular early window, let's start by staying in the AFC South, where the Colts are looking to rebound from a loss to the Jags and the Titans are coming off their bye. Let's start with the case for the Colts. Shane Steichen says that Anthony Richardson is still the starter when he's healthy. I'm just unsure of when that's going to be. So let's just celebrate Joe Flacco's downfield passing from last week. Of his 359 yards, 249 of them came off 10-plus air yarders and 2 of his 3 touchdowns. My take on the Titans is centered around their defense, even though I have to point out that we're still unclear who the starting quarterback for this one is as well. I'm using Will Levis in my projection. The defense, however, has the best run stuff rate in the NFL at 25.7%. They're likely getting Jeffrey Simmons back to help up front. And L'Jarius Sneed has allowed a sub 43 completion percentage that is 5th best according to Next Gen Stats. Bottom line, we're going to get a chance to see what's real here. I love Joe Flacco, but even if it's him, it's a really bad matchup. Tennessee's defense has only allowed 9 completions of 10-plus air yards. That's the lowest in the league. And the Colts' run game is a really big deal here, and it's still unclear about Jonathan Taylor's status. Tennessee's defense, they allowed 53 rushing yards over expected in their first 3 matchups, but negative 28 in their week 4 matchup against the Dolphins. My model says Tennessee squeaks by 21-20, but this ranks 14 of 14 in confidence due to injuries and uncertainty at the quarterback position. You know what is real, but I had to check a few times to make sure because it doesn't sound real, is the fact that Houston has never won a game at New England. They're 0-7 at Gillette, including the playoffs. Let's go to that game where, of course, Drake May is making his first start. Starting with the Texans, let's check in on CJ Stroud versus man coverage because the Patriots, man coverage, those 2 things are synonymous with one another. Stroud has only seen it on about 17% of snaps. He's completed 24 of 31 pass attempts for 283 and 3 touchdowns against it. That happens to be the highest completion percentage above expected against man with 9.1 yards per attempt. That's the 3rd most. There is no Nico Collins in this one, though, so let's see how the pass attempts go to Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, and crew, and we'll track that for future games. The problem the Patriots pose is that Christian Gonzalez has allowed just 4 completions on 16 targets over 10 air yards this season. He is minus 3.2 receptions over expected on these attempts. That is 2nd best among all cornerbacks, and he's allowed 59 total yards, that's it, and has 2 passes defensed. Bottom line, This is Drake May's first start, and he is jumping right into the deep end. I mean, Jacoby Brissett, the veteran, had been pressured on a league-high 50% of dropbacks. I get it, the offensive line is injured. We've seen a lot of different rotations and combinations, but they've also allowed the highest unblocked pressure rate this season, and the Pats' offensive linemen have allowed the highest pressure rate from 3 of the 5 offensive alignments. So left tackle, center, and right guard. And the Texans defense has a 42% pressure rate. That's the highest in the NFL. And Danielle Hunter individually leads with 29 pressures. By the way, Will Anderson, he has 23. That's tied for 7th. The Texans are generating the highest pressure rate on non-blitzes as well, over 40%. And just a peek at May's UNC data per PFF, he had a 43.3 completion percentage under pressure last year versus 68.7 when not under pressure. Houston comes out on top, 24-16, ranking second highest in confidence. And by the way, the winless streak in Gillette for Houston gets broken. But the Gerard Mayo versus D'Amico Ryans one remains intact. They played twice, and Ryans won both times. That's when they were players. On to another game with a quarterback change. This one is based on injury when the Tampa Bay Bucks take on the New Orleans Saints. Tampa's topic shows that all blitzes are not created equal. Baker Mayfield has the third quickest average time to throw, 2.43 seconds, and faced the second lowest pressure rate against the blitz this season. He's been effective when the ball gets out of his hands. 5 touchdowns without an interception on such attempts. That's tied for second most in the league. However, it's a little all or nothing. He's been pressured 19 times on the blitz, and 8 have turned into sacks. That is the second highest by percentage. So let's look at New Orleans' defense in this situation. Overall, only 10% of their pressures are quick ones, so sub 2.5 seconds. That's the 5th lowest in the NFL. But when they blitz, their quick pressure rate is over 19%. So both teams kind of have home run profiles, not base hits. My New Orleans nugget is all about Alvin Kamara in the pass catching game. He leads all running backs with 67 receiving yards over expected and 61 yards after the catch over expected this season. He's caught every single one of his 9 targets for 93 yards on the 21 routes he's run from non-backfield alignments this season. I bring this up because with Derek Carr out and Tampa Bay known for blitzing, this could be a nice outlet for the quarterback. Bottom line, Bucks win 22-18. This ranks 9th, based very strongly on decreased passing potential and a shift in the game plan with a quarterback replacement for New Orleans, along with offensive line injuries. The Saints forecast to continue their streak of scoring fewer than 25 points again this week, which would make it 4 games in a row after putting up 91 total points in weeks 1 and 2, which was tied for the second most in NFL history. Speaking of historical references, this is the perfect spot for Model Citizens, our list of 2 historical notes that you could also consider as action items for this week. Number 1, Bucks receiver Mike Evans needs 1 receiving touchdown to become the 11th player in the NFL with 100 career receiving touchdowns. If he does it this week, he would become the 5th fastest player to 100. This is his 160th game. The only guys who are faster, Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, and Marvin Harrison Sr. Marshawn Lattimore could have something to say about that, though. They faced each other 12 times on over 61% of snaps, and Evans has 19 receptions, 302 yards, 2 touchdowns, but no touchdowns versus New Orleans last year. Fun fact, he actually only needs 44 yards to be the 6th wide receiver to reach 12,000 career receiving yards. So if you think Marshawn Lattimore can shut him down, plan accordingly. If not, plan accordingly. One thing I know for sure, he's probably going to forget to keep the ball yet again. Historical fact number 2. Xavier McKinney had his 5th consecutive game with an interception. He's the only player this season to do that. He's the first Packers player to do so in the Super Bowl era. Also in the same Super Bowl era, he's the only guy with 1 or more interception in each of his first 5 games with a new team. Interceptions are a fickle stat, so proceed with caution, but we do appreciate fun around here. That does bring us to Lambeau, where the Arizona Cardinals come to town to take on the Green Bay Packers. My argument for Arizona is really all about rookie wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. He has 17 catches for 279 yards and 4 touchdowns through 5 weeks, and the matchup here is interesting with Jair Alexander. If he plays, which he's been inactive for the past 2 games, we have seen him shadow number 1 receivers. In week 1 against the Eagles, he was on A.J. Brown, and in week 3 against the Titans, he followed Calvin Ridley. I don't know if he'll shadow him or not, but I think he'll probably get the wideout one attention. Next Gen Stats adds a little context here because 3 of his 4 receiving touchdowns have come on tight window targets. Those are less than 1 yard of separation passes, and he has the most tight window receiving touchdowns this year. He also has 13 tight window targets. That is also the most. My point here is that even if Ja plays, it should be a good one for Marvin Harrison Jr. My Packers point is about running the football. They have the 5th most rushing yards over expected this season, 151, and Josh Jacobs has forced 19 missed tackles on runs this season, the 5th most in the NFL as well. Opposing offenses of the Cardinals have had the 2nd highest rushing success rate, over 50%. So think of 4 yards on first down, half of remaining on second, etc. The run game should be strong in this one. Bottom line, the Cardinals defense has struggled to generate pressure. In fact, they have the 2nd lowest rate in the NFL, and they're one of just 2 teams without a single pass rusher to have double-digit pressures. The key to affecting Jordan Love has been pressure. In fact, he has the lowest passer rating under pressure in the NFL at 23.3, which is a big drop-off from what happens when he's not under pressure. Green Bay wins 26-20, and this ranks 3rd in confidence. On to another AFC versus NFC matchup at the Link when Cleveland travels to Philly. The case for Cleveland is about tough running. Both Jerome Ford and Deontay Foreman have over a 22% forced missed tackle rate. Ford is also tied for the 7th most yards after contact per carry this season at 4. The Eagles' defense has missed a tackle on a league-high 16.4% of attempts. They've also lost the 3rd most yards on this at 269. The facts for Philly include A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Lane Johnson all reportedly expected to return this week, which makes the situation even better for Saquon Barkley, who is already experiencing career highs in yards before contact per carry, rushing yards over expected per carry. He's facing light boxes at a career high rate, and he's generating a career high 47% rushing success rate across all carries. As for the matchup, Cleveland's defense is allowing 5 yards per carry, and they rank no lower than 8th most or most generous before contact and after contact, meaning you can run against Cleveland. Bottom line, Cleveland's offense ranks 32nd on 3rd down. They're only converting 18.2% of the time. And in matchups between Washington and them and the Raiders without Max Crosby, those were opportunities for the percentage to at least increase, but it's actually gone down over the last 2 matchups. This drives the Philadelphia win 27-19. This ranks 1st in confidence. The Eagles have won 5 of their last 6 meetings against the Browns and forecast to make it 6 of 7. And what I think is the best game in this window is the battle for DMV. I'm pretty sure people call it that. If not, they should. When Washington faces Baltimore. What's what with Washington? Well, let's look at Jaden Daniels on scrambles. He's 7 of 8 for 113 passing yards. He also leads the league with 244 rushing yards on them. He has a plus 29.5 EPA. That's the most by a rookie in the next-gen stats era. It also paces the league this season. Duh. As for the Baltimore defense, they've only faced 3 scrambles this season. The basis to back Baltimore is all about Lamar Jackson reversing a negative trend that he's experienced so far this season against man coverage, but not last week in what was probably the game of the year. It definitely was for sure so far. He went 8 of 11 for 97 yards and 3 touchdowns. He generated a season-high 11.8 EPA against man coverage. And by the way, before last week, it was negative 3.9 EPA against man. Bottom line, Derrick Henry is an exceptionally bad matchup for the Commanders. Overall, he has 572 yards and 6 touchdowns on 95 carries. 231 of those yards have come before contact. That's 2nd most in the NFL. He also has 11 runs of 10 plus yards this season, tied for the 4th most in the NFL. Washington's defense has allowed the most yards per rush, 5.1, the 2nd most yards before contact per carry, 2.1, the most explosive runs, and have the highest rate of explosive runs allowed as well. This drives a Baltimore win 28-24 and ranks 7th, so right in the middle in confidence. Let's do the weekly wildcards here. This is our list of 5 lesser expected touchdown scores. I'm talking about guys who aren't in the top few at their position in touchdown scoring, guys you didn't draft in round 1 of your fantasy league, guys who are showing elevated end zone reaching odds this particular week. Last week went pretty well, so let's roll that into this week. Starting with Terry McLaurin, who has 264 receiving yards since week 3. That's 6th most in the NFL. He gets the Ravens, who rank 31st in the NFL in passing yards per game allowed. Next up is Bijan Robinson, who only has 1 scrimmage touchdown so far this season. He gets Carolina, who's allowed 9 rushing touchdowns. That's the most in the NFL. And he could even get one through the air. Number 3 is Tony Pollard versus the Colts. Pollard has averaged 4.5 yards after contact per carry this season. That is the highest in the NFL. Number 4 is Tucker Kraft versus Arizona. Kraft leads all tight ends and wide receivers with 11.9 yards after the catch per reception this season. By the way, he and Jamar Chase are the only players with 100 plus receiving yards after contact this season. And number 5, Najee Harris, who leads the Steelers with 82 carries and 270 rush yards, but has yet to see the end zone. By the way, this is the second straight season for him without a rushing touchdown in the first 5 games. Which brings us to our next game, the black and yellow at the silver and black, aka Pittsburgh at Las Vegas. My stat on the Steelers assumes that Justin Fields is still the starting quarterback. So let's take a look at how he's fared against the blitz. 2 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a 102.6 passer rating. By the way, that's up from his first 3 seasons where it was just an 87 passer rating with 8 interceptions. Fields has the highest rollout rate, so that also helps, but the Raiders defense blitzes at the 5th highest rate in the league. The reasoning for the Raiders is about their defensive front, who have the ability to find space and get after the quarterback without being blocked. They have 15 unblocked quarterback pressures, 6 resulted in sacks. That's the most in the NFL. The Steelers' O-line has allowed the 10th highest pressure rate so far. I know Christian Wilkins is now on IR. It'll make it harder, but I still think that's an advantage for them. Bottom line, personnel uncertainty and quarterback changes for the Raiders drives a Pittsburgh win 21-17, ranking 5th in confidence. And by the way, there's no winner change with a quarterback change for Pittsburgh. Fun fact, tackle Broderick Jones draws Max Crosby. He's one of 2 tackles this season to not allow a quick pressure yet. From one quotable coach, Mike Tomlin, to another in Raheem Morris, who now apparently loves stats after last week saying they're for losers. It's all very confusing, but Atlanta goes to Carolina to face the Panthers. My algorithm notes on Atlanta are really about a tendency, and that's Drake London. He's been targeted on 39.3% of his routes from the slot this season. That's the highest target rate for any receiver with at least 50 such routes run. London has 17 receptions for 217 yards and 2 touchdowns on slot targets. By the way, when he's out wide, he's only targeted 19.4% of the time. For Carolina's claim, it's Deontay Johnson. He has team highs in target share, air yard share, and this week he gets A.J. Terrell, who's allowed 13 receptions for 139 yards on 17 targets this season. That is the highest completion percentage allowed, 76.5, among all cornerbacks with at least 10 targets so far this season. Bottom line, Kirk Cousins has been effective when not under pressure this season. He's thrown a league-high 8 touchdowns without an interception on such passes, and by the way, he's thrown a league-high 5 interceptions without a touchdown when under pressure. The Panthers defense ranks bottom 3 in completion percentage, yards per attempt, and touchdowns allowed when failing to pressure opposing passers this season. Atlanta wins 25-18. This ranks 4th in terms of confidence, and in my math, this continues their streak of each of the Falcons' first 5 games being decided by 1 possession. This would make it 6. Let's keep the quotable coaches going when Harbaugh and Peyton face off in Denver. What counts for the Chargers is all about their defense, of course. They have the 4th lowest missed tackle rate, just 10.5%, and they're tied for the 4th fewest explosive rushes given up. You need to factor this in if you have Javonte Williams in fantasy or even Bo Nix. However, Williams has forced 22 missed tackles on 70 touches. That's tied for the 6th most. Denver's details are also about the defense. I feel like I've given a lot of love to this defense in terms of passing, for great reason. We just watched Patrick Surtain's 100-yard pick 6, so let's look at how they fare against the run. Ready? Most run stuffs and 2nd highest run stuff rate. Tied for 6th lowest yards after contact per carry and the 5th lowest missed tackle rate. Bottom line, the Broncos have blitzed at the highest rate in the NFL this season, including a league-high 54% on first down. The Chargers' O-line is likely missing pieces again. Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater are not looking like they're going to play, and they've allowed the 3rd highest pressure rate, 41% so far this season. As such, Justin Herbert has attempted a quick pass on about 46% of his passes. That is his highest rate since he's a rookie. He has 60% of his passing yards on quick passes. That's the highest rate in the league. That is not a good matchup for this Denver defense. Broncos win 20-19, and this ranks 13th in confidence. Let's do our list of streak or freak. I am definitely looking for a better name for this segment. However, this is a list of 5 streaks in this week's games. Are they going to be broken or extended? Number 1. Since 2000, rookie starting quarterbacks have won only 6 of 32 matchups versus the number 1 scoring defense in week 5 or later. That would be Bo Nix versus the Chargers in this matchup. I have them breaking this streak. Number 2, Trevor Lawrence is 0-5 in his career versus fellow number 1 overall pick quarterbacks. He's actually tied with Steve Bartkowski for the most losses without a win by a number 1 overall pick quarterback in the common draft era. I have Chicago winning, so I guess that streak continues. Number 3, in Lamar versus Jaden. The reigning MVP is 9-1 in the last 10 matchups versus rookie quarterbacks. That's since 2014. By the way, that one loss is Las Vegas rookie Aiden O'Connell beating Patrick Mahomes in Week 16 of last year. I have Lamar and the Ravens winning. Number 4. I know it's not till the end of this show because it's the Monday Nighter, but this is fun. Teams that play a game in the U.S. directly after a game in Europe with no bye week, just like the Jets are going to do, are 10-4 all time. Of those teams, the ones that lost their game in Europe, like the Jets did, are 6-3. And number 5, the Cowboys have won each of their last 5 matchups against the Lions since 2016. This is Dallas's best record versus any opponent in the Dak Prescott era. And by the way, this is one of 3 teams that Prescott has not lost to in his career. He's 2-0 versus Pittsburgh and 1-0 versus Cincinnati. Let's see what my model says about that streak when the Lions head to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. My detail on Detroit is about deep passing, where Jared Goff has attempted a deep pass, so 20-plus air yard passes, on just 5.6% of his total attempts this season. That is the 3rd lowest rate in the league. He's attempted 7 total deep passes. 6 have been targeted to Jamison Williams. By the way, 2 were complete. 1 was a touchdown. He threw an interception on an only deep pass not targeted to Williams. That was to Tim Patrick. The Cowboys defense has allowed 2 of 20 deep passes to be completed this season. That's a low number. It is actually tied for the fewest such completions in the league with 5 other defenses. Dallas's data shows CeeDee Lamb leading the NFL in receiving yards over expected and yards after the catch over expected against man coverage this season. By the way, he has 185 yards and 2 touchdowns on just 6 receptions and 16 targets. Dak Prescott has completed just 38% of passes when targeting Lamb versus man coverage this season. That's down from 70% last season. However, the matchup is interesting here because Rams wide receiver Tyler Johnson is the only receiver to gain more than 50 receiving yards against the Lions' man coverage in a game so far this season. Bottom line here, Detroit's run game puts them over the top. They run at the 5th highest rate, and Dallas has the lowest run stuff percentage in the league at 10.5%. They've also allowed 339 yards after contact on outside rushes. That's the most in the NFL. No DeMarcus Lawrence, no Micah Parsons. This is going to be a tough one. Lions win 26-24, ranking 12th in confidence. Fun fact here, safety Kirby Joseph on 10 targets has 4 passes defensed, 3 interceptions, and a 0 passer rating. That's the lowest passer rating of anyone in the league with 10 or more targets. Sunday Night Football is in New York City when Cincinnati comes to town to tangle with the Giants. My Bengals bullet point is that Jamar Chase leads the NFL in receiving yards over expected on both passes under 10 air yards and over 10 air yards this season. Chase is the first player to accomplish this in the first 5 weeks of the season since at least 2018. My Giants defense is defense, of course. It's Dex. It's this pressure front. Just kidding. I want to talk about Tyrone Tracy in this one, who played a season-high 62% of snaps in Week 5. Devin Singletary was out. He got the opportunity, and he made the most of it. 129 yards on 18 carries, 47 rushing yards over expected. The Bengals defense has allowed the most rushing yards over expected in the league, in part due to allowing the second most rushing yards after contact. By the way, they've allowed 585 of those. Bottom line here, Joe Burrow has only thrown 2 interceptions this season. His offensive line has kept him clean. He actually has the lowest pressure rate in the league at 21.5%. He's thrown the most touchdown passes, that's 12. He has the best passer rating, second highest completion percentage. Cincinnati wins 25-21 and this ranks 6th in confidence. The week finishes off in New York on Monday, where they just change over all the stadium signage from Big Blue to Gangrene overnight. I love that time-lapse video. I really hope ESPN puts that up. I have no idea why. I just really like it. Anyways, the Buffalo Bills come to town to take on the New York Jets. The Bills' big matchup is all about the quick passes and also the Jets' ability to limit them. Josh Allen leads all qualified passers with plus 0.47 EPA generated per dropback on quick passes. He has the 4th most yards per attempt on them, but the Jets defense has limited opposing quick pass attempts this season. They've allowed the lowest yards per attempt in the league on them, and they've also allowed the lowest success rate, so best for the defense, just 36.6%. If Khalil Shakir is back, this could be an advantage for Josh Allen, but this is one to watch. The Jets' Jenga piece is also about the quick pass, where Aaron Rodgers has been effective and the Bills' defense has given up some explosive plays. Rodgers has gotten rid of the ball in under 2.5 seconds on 57% of his passes. That's the 4th highest rate among quarterbacks this season. And by the way, 60% of his yards have come off of quick passes. The Bills' defense has allowed 11 explosive plays, so those are 15 plus yards off quick passes this season. That is tied for the most in the league. Bottom line here, the Jets defense has the highest missed tackle rate in the NFL on runs, 29.9%. Josh Allen has generated a positive 0.88 EPA per carry on all rushes. That's the most among 69 players with at least 20 carries. And he scored or gained a first down on 58.3% of his rushes, also the highest rate in the league. Buffalo wins 23-19, and this ranks 10th in confidence. I've gotten good feedback on the bland and spicy stat mixes, aka player props, so I'm going to give you the ingredients so you can make your own blend. Quick reminder, bland player notes are ones that occur in 55+% of simulations, and spicy ones are 48%. So mix and match as you see fit. Just remember, more spicy means more risk. I'm going to give you the bland ones first. All of these match notes we've already talked about in this show. Number 1, Josh Allen, a rushing touchdown. Number 2, Stephon Diggs, an anytime touchdown. Remember, no Nico Collins. He has the most experience versus the Patriots on this team, and there's lots of injuries on that defense as well. Number 3, Derrick Henry, touchdown. This is a great bland basic this week. And number 4, Deontay Johnson, a touchdown. As for the spicy stats, a Brian Thomas Jr. touchdown. I know he's a great deep threat, but Chicago has really good corners. In fact, Jalen Johnson has a sub-50 passer rating, and he should see a lot of him. However, I think game script dictates a Brian Thomas Jr. touchdown. Dallas Goedert, touchdown against the Browns. This would be his first trip to the end zone this season. He does rank top 2 in tight ends and receptions and receiving yards with 24 and 301. And he's getting some teammates back, so that's where the spice comes in. Number 3, a Sam Laporta touchdown versus Dallas. This would also be his first trip to the end zone this season. By the way, Jared Goff has a 153.6 passer rating versus man coverage. That is the best in the NFL. And last but not least, Garrett Wilson, who's coming off a game where he saw 22 targets, had a trip to the end zone, but this week matches up against Christian Benford, who's allowed just 0.3 yards per coverage snap this season. That is tied for the lowest among all corners with at least 100 snaps. Thank you so much for dealing with my neighbor's construction. That hammer is driving me up the wall. Anyways, look for a newsletter very soon, and that special other episode, it is coming out soon as well. I'll see you back here for lots of Week 7 fun. All of my numbers are up for you to use as you wish as of Wednesday, October 9th. Remember, they update daily with the injury reports. Thank you so much for hanging out, and if you like the show, please pass it along so we can continue to grow.